Kania sat beside the bed, watching her young master in silence. His pale face, the ragged rise and fall of his chest, the bloodstains on his bandages. He looked so pitiful. Her fingers curled into fists. Is this really all right? She had spent so long dreaming of the day she would kill him. If I had left him alone, he would have died today. So why? Why did the thought make her chest feel so unbearably tight? Her lips trembled. No, I can't let him die. Not yet. There had to be a reason why he saved her. But if she didn't like the answer, she could still kill him afterward. Her resolve hardened. Kania raised her hands, summoning dark magic. A spherical formation formed in her palms, the energy wrapping around her body like writhing shadows. A sharp sting shot through her arms. Even after all her training, controlling this spell was still painful. But it didn't matter. This was her best chance. I'll tap into his subconscious. With him unconscious, it would be even easier. Then, I'll finally know what's been going on inside of his head. As the spell activated, the world around her shifted. Inside his subconscious, Kania opened her eyes and immediately froze. It was bright. His subconscious was clear. She had seen into the minds of many sinners before. They were always engulfed in darkness. But here, it was like standing beneath a vast, endless sky. Why is it like this? A soft voice startled her. Hello. Kania turned. Her breath caught in her throat. A young Frey stood before her, smiling up at her with eyes so full of hope. It had been years since she had last seen him like this. A sudden wave of hesitation washed over her. No. She clenched her fists, shoving down her emotions. This was still Frey. He had absolute control over this space. She couldn't let her guard down. Dark magic swirled around her, tendrils of crimson wrapping around the boy's arms and legs, binding him in place. Frey's smile faded as he struggled against the restraints. Kania narrowed her eyes. This is my magic of O's. The magic pulsed, turning deep red. Swear that you will answer my questions truthfully. The boy nodded without hesitation. I swear. So please let me go. The binds unshackled, falling away. The boy looked down at his freed arms, his eyes shimmering as if he didn't understand what had just happened. Kania remained still. Then, she spoke her first question. Why did Frey save me? The boy smiled softly. Because you're precious to him. Kania's expression darkened. Precious, she repeated coldly. After everything he's done to me. After everything he's put me through. Her hands trembled as she spat. Just what do you think he's done to me? The boy didn't waver. There was a reason for it. Kania gritted her teeth. What possible reason could justify any of it? But the boy only shook his head. Frey has been sacrificing his own life force to save you. The words hit her like a blade to the heart. She froze. What? The memories started flooding in. The strange incident she had noticed. The weakened state of his body. The constant pain he tried to hide. It all suddenly made sense. Kania's hands clutched her chest. Her heartbeat, it hurt. The boy sighed. I knew words alone wouldn't convince you. He stepped forward, reaching out a hand. I'll show you instead. The truth unveiled. A blinding light engulfed Kania. Memories surged into her mind. She heard Frey's voice. I became the villain. I always intended to kill myself, taking the demon queen down with me. I want to protect everyone. This time, for sure, I'll be able to protect everyone. I won't live for very long after all. I need to make good use of her in order for her to survive. Kania, please tell me. Why did you save me? Her breath caught. Her body shook violently. All this time, every despicable action Frey had committed, it was all to save the world. And she was the reason he was like this. The realization shattered her. Tears streamed down her face as her knees buckled beneath her. Her voice broke into sobs as she cried out. Frey, what have I done? She covered her face, tears pouring uncontrollably. Even after everything, he still sacrificed his life force for her. Young Master Frey. She clenched her fists, her body trembling. What is the truth anymore? A small hand touched her shoulder. She looked up. The young Frey was smiling softly, his eyes filled with warmth. Please don't blame yourself. His small arms wrapped around her, pulling her into a gentle embrace. It's enough for me to bear all the hate. Kania's tears wouldn't stop. The subconscious world began to crumble around her, breaking apart like fragile glass. As the light faded, Kania could still feel the warmth of the boy's embrace. Then, she woke up. Tears still streamed down her face. And for the first time, she felt truly lost. Sitting there truly lost, not knowing what was right or wrong. The moon bathed the room in silver light, its soft glow illuminating the quiet space. A faint groan broke the silence. Frey's fingers twitched, his brows furrowing in visible agony as he stirred awake. A cold sweat clung to his skin as he forced himself to sit up, his body protesting every movement. His dazed gaze wandered, taking in his surroundings. "This place is," he murmured, his voice hoarse. The lingering discomfort was evident in his expression as he struggled to piece things together. But before he could gather his thoughts, a familiar voice called out, "Young master." Kania had sprung to her feet, her violet eyes wide with emotion. For a moment, she simply stared at him, her face slowly turning red. Frey's eyes narrowed slightly as his mind raced to connect the dots. Then, realization dawned. She knew. Kania had figured out the truth. A long sigh escaped his lips as he looked at her seriously. "I know it may not satisfy you," he said slowly, meeting her gaze, "but I intend to tell you everything." There was no point in hiding it anymore. Kania hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Please tell me." Her voice was anxious, but determined. Frey exhaled deeply before starting from the beginning. "I was given a mission, to save the world. Because of that, I'm bound by a strict vow." Kania listened intently, her hands clasped together, her expression unreadable. "Right now," he continued, "I grow stronger whenever I commit evil. But," he hesitated before adding, "whenever my good deeds are exposed, I lose a portion of my lifespan." Silence settled between them. Kania's eyes widened slightly as she finally connected the missing pieces. "And that's why you've been threatening me like this?" Frey's jaw clenched as he curled his hands into fists. "Yes." His voice was sharp, bitter. "I used you, Kania. I manipulated you for the sake of my mission." His expression darkened, his once lively gaze now void of warmth. "Then, never forgive me." His voice was flat, final. "No matter what reasons I had." His fingers trembled slightly as he continued. "My actions cannot be justified." Kania's lips parted slightly as she processed his words. She lowered her gaze, her thoughts spiraling. Everything suddenly made sense. Every cruel act, every ruthless decision. Even when he tormented her, he never once laid a hand on the innocent. "Aren't you in a situation where that can't be avoided?" she finally said, her voice quiet. "And you've even been giving me some of your vitality every night." Frey froze. His head snapped toward her, his eyes widening in disbelief. "You noticed?" For the first time, his usually composed mask shattered. Kania gave a small nod. "I didn't understand what you were doing at first," she admitted. "But now I do." Frey let out a slow breath, running a hand through his hair as he leaned back slightly. "I suppose it was only a matter of time before you found out." He looked at her then, his crimson eyes steady. "So, what will you do now?" His gaze locked onto hers, trying to read her. Would she leave now that she knew? Would she resent him? Kania's cheeks flushed slightly as she lowered her head. Then, her voice, once cold and distant, was now soft and unwavering. "I will continue to serve you, just as I always have." Frey blinked. She lifted her gaze, her violet eyes shining with conviction. "I won't be satisfied until I repay my debt." A gentle breeze drifted through the open window, making the candlelight flicker. Frey let out a breathless chuckle, shaking his head slightly. "I kind of expected you to say that." A small smile, one that was neither forced nor bitter, touched his lips. "Then please continue taking care of me." And in the quiet, moonlit room, they simply looked at each other. The distance between them felt smaller than ever. The soft morning light streamed through the cafe windows, casting a warm glow over the wooden floors. A small orange cat sat on a cushion, lazily licking its paw with delicate precision. The cuteness filled the air, making the otherwise tense atmosphere seem deceptively peaceful. Suddenly, "Princess, Why are we meeting at a cat cafe? Kania's voice carried a mix of curiosity and suspicion as she glared at the girl in front of her. A gray-black cat was nestled against the princess's cheek, purring softly. Her face was flushed red, her expression filled with excitement as she nuzzled the feline. Without looking away from the cat, the princess finally responded. Because no one can spy on us here. Kania's gaze narrowed slightly, watching the princess's mannerisms carefully. A soft paw pressed against Kania's lap, and she glanced down to see the orange cat now resting comfortably there, its tail flicking idly. Is that so? Kania murmured, stroking the cat absent-mindedly. But then, the air shifted. The princess's demeanor hardened, and she looked straight at Kania with sharp, calculating eyes. Since I failed to obtain his stigma of domination, she said, her voice lowering, I need to secure one of Frey's weaknesses. Kania's fingers tensed slightly on the cat's fur. To keep him from making any moves, the princess's eyes darkened, her voice filled with barely contained fury. Honestly, I want to tear him apart right this very moment. And then let's do it now. Frloche declared, her voice brimming with reckless enthusiasm. Her loud outburst startled the two cats curled up in their laps. With a sharp screech, the felines bolted away, leaping onto a nearby shelf in alarm. Kania watched the commotion with a blank expression, resisting the urge to rub her temples. The princess sighed, regaining her composure. Even if he dies, our lives will continue. Her voice had lost its heat, turning eerily calm and methodical. We need to leave as few footprints as possible. No evidence. Frloche, meanwhile, simply scratched her head, clearly not putting much thought into the finer details. Kania remained silent, watching them both carefully. Her thoughts drifted. If I can observe them like this, then at least I can be of use to the young master. Her fingers curled slightly against the fabric of her uniform. But is that enough? Her mind raced, considering everything she had seen, everything she had learned. There really isn't much I can do for him. I can't shoulder his burdens for him. But her gaze softened as a quiet realization settled over her. Instead of grand gestures, I can start with something small. A single, simple goal came to mind. First, I should prepare him a proper meal, so that, even for a brief moment, young master might smile. As the two women across from her continued their dangerous discussion, Kania silently formulated her own plans.